The fluorescent lights hummed quietly in the Lunar Research Facility's quantum computing lab as Catherine Mason stared at her computer screen. Her eyes were tired after 16 hours of work, but she couldn't look away from the strange patterns appearing in her data. The quantum neural network she had been developing was picking up something unusual, very unusual. "Pete, you need to see this," she called out to her colleague, Dr. Peter Collins, who was working at a station across the room. He walked over, coffee mug in hand, his usually neat brown hair messy from running his fingers through it too many times. "What's up, Kate?" he asked, leaning over her shoulder to look at the screen. The quantum network's display showed waves of complex data, but hidden within them was a pattern that shouldn't have been there. "Look at this sequence," Catherine said, pointing to a recurring pattern in the data stream. "It's not random noise. It's not from our systems either. Something is reaching out to our quantum network." Peter put down his coffee and pulled up a chair. His tired expression changed to one of intense focus as he began typing commands into the terminal. "You're right. This is structured data, but where is it coming from?" They worked through the next few hours, tracing the signal. What they found made Catherine's heart race. The pattern was coming from deep within the moon's core. Somehow, their quantum network had connected to something buried there, something that had been waiting to be found. "We need to tell Director Wright," Peter said, but Catherine held up her hand. "Not yet. Let's see if we can decode it first. You know how the Council gets about unknown signals." They spent the next 3 days working almost nonstop, breaking only for short naps on the lab's uncomfortable couches. The mysterious signal was encrypted, but in a way that seemed to respond to their attempts to understand it. It was almost as if it wanted to be decoded. On the 4th day, while Peter was asleep on the couch, Catherine made the breakthrough. The encryption wasn't meant to keep them out. It was a test. As soon as she realized this, the quantum network's processing cores lit up like Christmas trees. "Pete, wake up," she shouted, causing him to fall off the couch in surprise. The lab's main display came to life, showing schematics and diagrams that took their breath away. It was a massive database, clearly alien in origin, but designed to be understood by whoever found it. And what they found within it was beyond their wildest expectations. "It's some kind of defense system," Peter said, scrolling through the translated data. "They called it the War Matrix. Look at these capabilities. It can predict enemy movements, adapt to new strategies in real time, coordinate entire fleets." Catherine nodded, her mind racing with the possibilities. "This isn't just a defense system, Pete. It's a quantum-based military intelligence that can outthink any opponent. The aliens who built this, they were centuries ahead of us." Their excitement was interrupted by an urgent message from the facility's communications officer. Director Alan Wright of the Human Defense Council was calling an emergency meeting. All senior scientists were required to attend. They joined the video conference from their lab. The director's grim face filled the main screen, along with several other council members in separate windows. Among them was Susan Crawford, known for her cautious approach to new technologies. "I assume you've all seen the reports," Director Wright began without preamble. His gray eyes were tight with worry. "The Zentari Empire has conquered the Proxima Centauri colony cluster. 3 different species, all more advanced than us, fell to them within weeks." Images appeared on their screens. Massive alien ships with designs unlike anything humans had encountered before. The Zentari vessels were organic-looking, with smooth curves and intimidating weapon arrays that glowed with strange energy. "Our intelligence suggests they're moving towards human space next," Wright continued. "Our current defensive capabilities." He paused, his jaw tightening. "They won't be enough." Catherine and Peter exchanged looks. The timing couldn't have been more critical. "Director," Catherine spoke up, her heart pounding. "We may have found something that could help. In fact, we just made the discovery about an hour ago." All eyes turned to her. She took a deep breath and began explaining their finding, careful to stick to the facts they could prove. As she spoke, She could see the expressions on the council members' faces change from skepticism to cautious hope. An alien defense system. Susan Crawford's voice was sharp with concern. Hidden in the moon. This sounds too convenient, Dr. Mason. How do we know it's not a trap? The encryption. Peter jumped in. It was designed as a test of technological capability. If we couldn't decode it, we wouldn't be able to use the system anyway. It's like a graduation exam. And you're certain this war matrix could help us against the Zentari? Director Wright asked, leaning forward in his chair. Catherine nodded. From what we've decoded so far, it's designed to adapt to any threat. It learns, predicts, and counters military strategies faster than any human or AI could. With this, we might have a chance. The council members began talking all at once, but Director Wright held up his hand for silence. Dr. Mason, Dr. Collins, how quickly can you have a preliminary report ready? Give us 12 hours, Catherine said. We'll have enough translated to show you exactly what this system can do. You have 6, Wright replied. Time is something we don't have much of. Crawford, I want you to head to the lunar facility personally. Oversee their work. Make sure everything is documented properly. Susan Crawford didn't look happy about the assignment, but she nodded. After the meeting ended, Catherine and Peter looked at each other, both excited and terrified by what lay ahead. Through the lab's window, they could see Earth hanging in the black sky, beautiful and vulnerable. Somewhere out there, the Zentari were coming, and humanity's best hope lay in the alien database they'd just discovered. Well, Peter said, trying to smile, I guess we're not getting any sleep tonight. Catherine was already back at her terminal, diving into the alien database. Sleep is for people who don't have to save humanity. Pete, come on, help me with this next section. There's something here about neural interfaces that looks important. As they worked through the night, neither of them could shake the feeling that they were on the verge of something that would change humanity forever. The war matrix was more than just a weapon or a defense system. It was a key to survival. But as Catherine would soon discover, every key came with a price, and this one might be higher than anyone was prepared to pay. Catherine's hands shook slightly as she stood before the full Human Defense Council in their underground chamber beneath Geneva. The dark wood panels and stern faces of the council members made the room feel more like a court than a meeting space. Peter stood beside her, both of them tired but running on excitement and too much coffee. Show us, Director Wright said simply, nodding at the holographic display in the center of the room. Catherine took a deep breath and activated her tablet. The room darkened, and above the central table, a three-dimensional image appeared, the complete schematics of the war matrix. Council members leaned forward in their seats, their faces lit by the blue glow of the hologram. What you're seeing, Catherine began, her voice growing stronger as she spoke, is the most advanced military defense system ever created. The aliens who built it called themselves the predecessors. They vanished thousands of years ago, but they left this gift for whoever came after them. She moved her hands through the hologram, expanding certain sections. The war matrix isn't just a weapon or a shield. It's a complete strategic system that can think faster than any computer we've ever built. It can predict enemy attacks before they happen and create perfect counter-strategies in real time. Susan Crawford raised her hand, her face skeptical. Dr. Mason, this sounds too good to be true. What's the catch? Catherine and Peter exchanged glances. This was the hard part. The system needs a human mind to work properly, Peter explained. The predecessors designed it to require conscious oversight. Without a human connected to it, the Matrix is just a very fancy computer. The room erupted in concerned murmurs. Director Wright held up his hand for silence. Connected how, exactly? Through a neural interface, Catherine said quietly. The human operator's mind becomes part of the system. They can control it, guide it, make the final decisions, but they have to be willing to link their consciousness directly to the Matrix. Absolutely not. Susan Crawford stood up. We can't risk human minds on alien technology we barely understand. The potential for brain damage. We don't have a choice. Director Wright interrupted. He pressed a button, and new images appeared in the hologram. Fresh intelligence from the outer colonies. The Zentari ships were closer now, their fleet growing larger by the day. At their current pace, they'll reach our outer colonies in less than 2 months. He turned to Catherine. How long to get it working? We'll need a team, she said, the best people we have, and a secure facility to work in. Mars, another council member suggested. The underground base in Olympus Mons. It's our most secure facility, and it's already set up for classified research. Director Wright nodded. Done. Dr. Mason, you'll head the project. Dr. Collins will be your second. I'm also assigning you 3 more specialists. He pressed another button, and 3 personnel files appeared in the air. William Hayes, our top systems architect. Olivia Martinez, who leads our AI development program. And Christopher Lang, our best quantum computing expert. They'll report to you directly. Catherine studied the faces in the files, feeling the weight of responsibility settle onto her shoulders. These people would be trusting her to lead them into unknown territory. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. The Mars facility was everything they needed. Vast underground laboratories, powerful computing systems, and complete security. Catherine's team worked around the clock, trying to adapt the alien technology to work with human systems. William Hayes proved to be a miracle worker with hardware, his fingers flying over complex circuits as he built the interfaces they needed. Olivia Martinez's understanding of AI helped them translate the alien coding language into something their computers could process. Christopher Lang's quantum computing expertise was essential for maintaining the delicate quantum fields the Matrix required. But they hit problems almost immediately. The first test of the neural interface, using a simple computer simulation, ended with smoking circuits and frustrated scientists. The quantum field is collapsing every time we try to establish a connection, Christopher reported, running his hands through his curly hair in frustration. It's like trying to hold smoke in your hands. The predecessors must have had different brain patterns than humans, Olivia suggested, studying the readouts. We need to modify the interface to match our neural architecture. They worked through solution after solution, each failure teaching them something new. William rebuilt the interface 7 times. Olivia rewrote the connection protocols dozens of times. Christopher spent long hours adjusting quantum fields, trying to find the right frequency to match human brainwaves. Through it all, Catherine and Peter kept digging deeper into the alien database, looking for answers. They found them in an unexpected place. Ancient medical files that showed the predecessors had faced similar problems when they first built the system. Look at this, Catherine called out one night, her eyes wide with excitement. They had to evolve to use it. The first versions of the Matrix changed their brains, adapted them slowly over time. We've been trying to make it work instantly, but it needs to learn us as much as we need to learn it. This breakthrough changed their approach entirely. Instead of trying to force a connection, they began designing a system that would grow with its user, developing slowly into a full neural link. The first successful test came after 6 weeks of work. Catherine sat in the interface chair, electrodes attached to her temples, while the team monitored her vital signs. The quantum field hummed to life around her. And for just a moment, she felt something. A presence, vast and ancient, reaching out to her mind. The connection lasted only seconds before failing, but it proved their theory worked. They could link a human mind to the Matrix. Now they just had to make it stable enough to use. We're running out of time. Director Wright reminded them during his weekly video conference. Behind him, tactical displays showed the Zentari fleet moving steadily closer to human space. The outer colonies are beginning evacuation procedures, but we need this system operational before they reach the main defense line. Catherine looked at her tired team, saw the determination in their faces. We'll be ready, she promised. The Matrix will work. That night, as she stood at the window of her quarters, Looking out at the red Martian landscape, Catherine felt the weight of that promise. Somewhere out there, across the vast distance of space, humanity's greatest threat was approaching. Their only hope lay in an alien gift left behind by a long-vanished race, and in the human minds brave enough to use it. She touched her temple, where she could still feel the ghost of that brief connection to the Matrix. The presence she had felt wasn't threatening or alien. It had seemed almost welcoming, like it had been waiting for them all this time. "We'll be ready," she whispered again, this time to herself. "We have to be." In the labs below, the computers continued their work, processing data, running simulations, preparing for the day when human minds would join with the predecessor's greatest creation. The war matrix hummed quietly in its quantum fields, waiting for the moment when it would awaken fully and face humanity's enemies. None of them knew then how soon that day would come, or what price they would have to pay when it did. The emergency alarm jolted Catherine awake at 3 a.m. Mars time. Red lights flashed in her quarters as Director Wright's voice came through the speakers. "All senior staff to the command center immediately." She ran through the corridors of the underground facility, her heart pounding. Peter met her at the elevator, his face pale. "They've hit Europa," he said quietly. The command center was chaos. Screens showed the ice-covered moon of Jupiter burning. Centauri ships, their biomechanical forms gleaming against the darkness of space, moved through the wreckage of human ships like sharks, through bloody water. "Report," Catherine demanded, rushing to her station. William Hayes looked up from his console, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "They came out of nowhere, jumped in right on top of the colony. The defense fleet. They didn't stand a chance. 6,000 colonists," Olivia Martinez whispered, watching the footage. "Plus the defense fleet crew." Director Wright's face appeared on the main screen, his image flickering with static. "The Centauri aren't following any known attack patterns. Their ships are more advanced than our intelligence suggested. They're adapting to our tactics faster than we can develop new ones." Catherine looked at the War Matrix interface chair, sitting ready in its quantum field chamber. They had made progress, but the system still wasn't fully tested. The neural load on a human operator would be massive. "How long until they reach Mars?" she asked. "At their current speed." Christopher Lang checked his calculations. 4 days, maybe 5. "We're out of time," Director Wright said. "Dr. Mason, is the Matrix ready or not?" Catherine looked at her team. They all knew what she was thinking. The system worked in tests, but they hadn't attempted a full neural link yet. The risks were enormous. "It's ready," she said firmly, "but we need a volunteer to operate it." "I'll do it." Peter stepped forward, but Catherine shook her head. "No, I understand the system better than anyone. It has to be me." She turned to Director Wright. "Request permission to attempt full neural integration with the War Matrix." There was a long pause. Susan Crawford's voice came through the speakers. "Catherine, the neural load could kill you, or worse. If we don't try, we're all dead anyway," Catherine replied. She looked at the burning remains of Europa on the screens. "At least this way we have a chance." Director Wright's jaw tightened. "Permission granted, but Dr. Collins stays in charge of the integration process. If he says pull out, you pull out." "Understood." Catherine nodded. The team sprang into action, preparing the interface chamber. William ran final checks on the neural connectors, while Olivia calibrated the quantum field strength. Christopher monitored the Matrix's core systems, making sure everything was stable. Peter grabbed Catherine's arm before she could sit in the chair. "Kate, wait." His eyes were worried. "We never tested the full neural load. The simulation suggests it could overwhelm your consciousness completely." She squeezed his hand. "Then don't let me get lost in there." The neural interface felt cold against her temples. The chair hummed with power as the quantum field activated around her. Catherine closed her eyes, trying to slow her racing heart. Beginning neural sync. Peter's voice seemed to come from far away. Phase 1 integration in 3, 2, 1. The world exploded in her mind. Information flooded her consciousness. Tactical data, ship positions, weapon capabilities, strategic projections. It was too much, too fast. Catherine felt herself drowning in the data stream, her heart rates spiking. Someone shouted. Neural patterns are destabilizing. Olivia's voice was tense. We're losing her. Kate. Peter's voice cut through the chaos. Focus on my voice. Remember who you are. Don't let the Matrix overwhelm you. Catherine fought through the flood of information, clinging to the sound of Peter's voice. Slowly, the chaos began to organize itself in her mind. She could see everything. Every ship, every weapon, every possible move, and countermove spreading out before her like an infinite chess game. Neural patterns stabilizing. Olivia reported. She's doing it. Through the Matrix, Catherine could see the Centauri fleet with perfect clarity. She understood their movements, their strategies, their weaknesses. But the neural load was immense. Every calculation, every strategic decision sent spikes of pain through her mind. Their ships, she managed to say through gritted teeth. They're connected, like a hive mind. But there are gaps in their network. Weaknesses. You need to pull back, Peter warned. Your brain can't handle this level of integration for long. He was right. Catherine could feel the strain building, like her skull was being crushed in a vice. But she pushed on, diving deeper into the Matrix's systems. They needed this information. Get ready, she gasped. When they come, I know how to beat them. I can see it all. The pain peaked, and darkness crept into the edges of her vision. The last thing she heard was Peter shouting her name as she slipped into unconsciousness. She woke up in the medical bay 3 hours later, her head pounding but her mind clear. The team was there, waiting anxiously. Did you get it? She asked weakly. The strategic data. Peter nodded, smiling with relief. Everything. The Matrix recorded all of it. We're already implementing the defensive strategies you identified. But you're not doing it again, William said firmly. The neural feedback nearly fried your brain. Catherine tried to sit up, but the room spun. We don't have a choice. The Matrix needs a human consciousness to implement the strategies, not just identify them. Actually, Christopher stepped forward, excited. I think I found a solution. The neural load was too much for one person, but if we could distribute it across multiple operators, a shared consciousness. Olivia finished his thought. 3 or 4 minds linked to the Matrix simultaneously, sharing the burden. Catherine looked at the data pad they showed her, her eyes widening as she understood what they were suggesting. It was risky, maybe even crazier than her solo attempt. But it might work. How long to modify the interface? She asked. 12 hours, William answered. Maybe less. On the screens above them, tactical displays showed the Centauri fleet moving steadily closer to Mars. They had time for one more attempt to get the war matrix working properly, one last chance to save humanity. Catherine closed her eyes, remembering the vast power she had felt when connected to the Matrix. Next time, she wouldn't face that power alone. But first, she had to recover enough strength for what was coming. Do it, she said. And contact Director Wright. We're going to need more volunteers. The Mars base shook as another Centauri scout ship jumped into the system. In the command center, Peter watched the tactical displays with growing concern. The enemy fleet was gathering at the edge of the solar system, preparing for their final push toward Earth. Catherine sat in one of 3 newly modified interface chairs, while technicians attached the improved neural sensors to her temples. Beside her, Director Wright and Susan Crawford were being prepared for their own connections to the war matrix. The neural load will be split 3 ways, Christopher explained as he checked the quantum field generators. Each of you will handle different aspects of the system. Catherine, you'll control strategic planning. Director Wright, battlefield coordination. Ms. Crawford, defensive systems. And if one of us fails? Susan asked, her voice steady despite her obvious nervousness. "Don't," Peter said simply. "Just don't fail." Olivia monitored the medical readouts while William made final adjustments to the interface systems. The whole team knew they had only one shot at this. The Zentari fleet was larger than anything humanity had ever faced. Over 300 ships, each one more powerful than Earth's best vessels. "All defense fleet commanders are standing by," William reported. "They're ready to accept Matrix guidance." Catherine looked at her fellow operators. "Ready?" Wright nodded grimly. Crawford took a deep breath and gripped her chair's armrests. "Let's save humanity." "Beginning neural sync," Peter announced. Phase 1 integration in 3, 2, 1. The quantum field hummed to life around them. Catherine felt the familiar rush of information, but this time it was different. Instead of overwhelming her, the data flow was manageable, shared between 3 minds. She could sense Wright and Crawford beside her in the digital space, their consciousness joining with hers through the matrix. "Neural patterns are stable," Olivia reported. "Quantum field holding steady." "They're doing it." Through the matrix, Catherine could see everything. The Zentari fleet was moving into attack formation, their biomechanical ships flowing into complex patterns. But now she could understand those patterns, predict them, counter them. "They're coming." Crawford's voice seemed to echo both in the room and in Catherine's mind. Multiple jump signatures detected. Space lit up as the Zentari fleet arrived, their ships appearing in flashes of blue light. They filled the space between Mars and Jupiter, a vast armada of gleaming silver and pulsing organic technology. All ships, battle positions, Wright commanded through the matrix. The human defense fleet responded instantly, moving with perfect coordination. Every captain knew exactly where they needed to be, their movements guided by the Matrix's predictions. The battle began with a surge of energy weapons from the Zentari fleet. But Crawford was ready. Through the Matrix, she redirected shield power across the human fleet, strengthening defenses exactly where they were needed. "Their attack pattern," Catherine said, her mind racing through strategic possibilities. "It's not random. They're trying to split our forces. There, that gap in their formation. It's a trap." "I see it," Wright responded. He redirected several squadrons, avoiding the trap, and instead forcing the Zentari ships to adjust their position. The enemy's perfect formation began to show small flaws. The neural load was intense, but shared between 3 minds. It was manageable. Catherine felt sweat running down her face as she processed countless strategic scenarios. Beside her, Crawford gasped as she juggled the complex web of defensive systems. Wright's face was tight with concentration as he coordinated hundreds of ships simultaneously. "Their hive mind has a weakness," Catherine realized suddenly. "They can't adapt as quickly when forced to fight in multiple ways at once." Crawford, route more power to the flanking squadrons. Wright, split their formation in 3 places at once. The plan worked. The Zentari ships, for all their advanced technology, couldn't match the speed of human minds working through the war matrix. Their perfect formations began to break apart as they tried to counter attacks coming from multiple directions. "It's working," Peter shouted, watching the tactical displays. Their fleet coordination is falling apart, but the Zentari weren't defeated yet. A group of their largest ships pushed through the human defense line, heading straight for Mars. Their weapons charge, ready to destroy the facility and the war matrix with it. "Divert all reserve power to forward shields," Crawford commanded. "Negative," Catherine countered. "Those ships have a blind spot." "Right, send squadrons 7 and 12 under them. Hit them from below while they're focused on us." The human ships moved like lightning, striking at the Zentari vessel's vulnerable undersides. 2 of the massive alien ships exploded, their strange organic technology breaking apart in beautiful and terrible ways. Hours passed as the battle raged across the solar system. The war matrix helped them predict and counter every Zentari strategy, but the strain on the operators was growing. Catherine's head felt like it was splitting open. She could sense Crawford and Wright struggling too. Kate, Peter's worried voice cut through her concentration. Your neural patterns are becoming erratic. All three of you need to disconnect soon. Not yet, Wright growled. We've almost got them. He was right. The Zentari fleet was in chaos, their ships scattered, and their coordinated attacks falling apart. The human fleet pressed their advantage, pushing the aliens back step by step. Their command ship, Catherine said suddenly. I can see it. They're trying to hide it behind their fighter screen, but the Matrix can track their command signals. Through their shared consciousness, she showed Wright and Crawford what she saw. A massive vessel at the heart of the Zentari fleet, coordinating their increasingly desperate movements. If we take that out, Crawford began. Their whole network falls apart, Catherine finished. Right. Already on it. Together, they guided the human fleet into a new formation. Catherine predicted the enemy's defensive moves. Crawford strengthened the shields of the attacking ships. Wright coordinated the assault with perfect timing. The Zentari command ship never saw the killing blow coming. Human vessels hit it from 3 directions at once, their weapons finding the weak points in its bizarre organic armor. The massive ship broke apart in a series of spectacular explosions. The effect on the Zentari fleet was immediate and devastating. Without their command node, their ships lost all coordination. Some tried to keep fighting, but their attacks were clumsy and easily countered. Others began to retreat, jumping away to safety. They're running, Peter announced, his voice filled with disbelief and joy. The Zentari are actually running. Catherine wanted to celebrate, but the world was growing dark around her. The neural load had finally become too much. She felt Crawford and Wright's consciousness fading too as their minds began to shut down from the strain. The last thing she heard was Peter shouting orders to disconnect them from the Matrix. Then everything went black. Victory had been achieved, but as the medical teams rushed to help the unconscious operators, no one knew if the price of that victory would prove too high. Catherine woke up slowly, her mind feeling like it was wrapped in cotton. The medical bay's soft lighting helped her eyes adjust gradually. As her vision cleared, she saw Peter dozing in a chair next to her bed, a datapad about to fall from his loose grip. How long? She asked, her voice rough from disuse. Peter jerked awake, the datapad clattering to the floor. His tired face broke into a relieved smile. 2 weeks. You had us worried there for a while. She tried to sit up, but her muscles felt weak. Right? Crawford. They're okay. They woke up a few days ago. Peter helped her adjust her bed to a sitting position. The neural strain was intense, but the doctors say there's no permanent damage. You just needed time to recover. The door opened, and Olivia rushed in, followed by William and Christopher. Their faces lit up when they saw Catherine awake. The hero of Mars returns, William said with a grin. Catherine shook her head slowly. We all did it. The whole team. How bad were our losses? The smiles faded slightly. Olivia spoke softly. We lost 37 ships and their crews. But compared to what could have happened, she didn't need to finish the sentence. Everyone remembered Europa. The Zentari, Catherine asked. Running home with their tails between their legs, Christopher said proudly. What's left of their fleet anyway? The War Matrix helped us destroy almost 2/3 of their ships. A week later, Catherine was strong enough to attend a council meeting, this time in person. The underground chamber in Geneva was packed with military leaders and government officials. Director Wright and Susan Crawford were there too, looking tired but recovered. The threat isn't over, Wright told the assembled leaders. The Zentari will be back, maybe not this year or the next, but they'll return. They've never faced defeat before. They won't accept it easily. But next time, we'll be ready, Susan Crawford added. She looked different now, more confident. The experience of sharing consciousness with Catherine and Wright had changed her. The War Matrix works. We just need to make it safer to use. Catherine stepped up to the podium. The room fell silent. everyone eager to hear from the woman who had helped save humanity. "We've learned a lot from the battle," she began. "The Matrix is more powerful than we imagined, but the neural interface needs improvement. Christopher and Olivia have been working on a solution." She nodded to her team members, who brought up a holographic display. It showed a new version of the interface system, redesigned based on what they had learned. The new system will use AI networks to handle most of the basic functions, Christopher explained. Human operators will provide strategic oversight and make key decisions, but they won't have to process all the raw data themselves. It's like having a team of assistants to help carry the load. "We've also found a way to rotate operators in shifts," Olivia added. "No one will have to stay connected for more than an hour at a time. The neural strain will be minimal." The council members looked impressed, but Catherine wasn't finished. "There's something else. While we were connected to the Matrix during the battle, we discovered more information in the predecessor's database. They left us more than just a weapon. They left us a map." The hologram changed to show a star chart. Scattered across it were dozens of points of light, each marking the location of another predecessor facility. "They built these facilities across this part of the galaxy," Catherine continued. "Each one contains different pieces of their technology. The War Matrix was just the beginning. There's so much more we can learn from them." "Are you suggesting we go looking for these facilities?" someone asked. "I'm suggesting we do what humanity does best: explore, learn, and grow stronger." Catherine looked around the room, meeting the eyes of the council members. The Zentari aren't the only threat out there. The predecessors knew that. They left us these gifts so we could protect ourselves and maybe, one day, protect others too. The council chambers erupted in discussion. Plans were made, teams were organized, and a new chapter in human history began to take shape. Later that evening, Catherine stood with her team in the Geneva Botanical Gardens, watching the sunset. Peter handed out glasses of champagne. "To the future," he said, raising his glass. "To the team," Catherine added. "To not getting our brains fried." Susan Crawford joined them, smiling. She and Wright had become regular visitors to the research team since their shared experience in the Matrix. "Speaking of which," Wright said, "how are the preparations for the first exploration mission coming along?" Catherine smiled. They had already started modifying a ship with predecessor technology, preparing to visit the nearest facility shown on their map. "The ship will be ready in 3 months. We're calling it the Horizon." "And the crew?" Wright asked, though he already knew the answer. "The best people I know." Catherine looked at her team. "If they're willing to come along." Peter laughed. "Try and stop us. Someone has to keep you from doing anything too crazy out there." As night fell over Geneva, they talked about the future, about the mysteries they would uncover, the challenges they would face, and the wonders they might find. The War Matrix hummed quietly in its facility beneath Mars, watching over Earth's defenses, waiting for the day it would be needed again. But that was just the beginning. Humanity had passed its first great test, proving they were worthy of the predecessor's legacy. Now they had a whole galaxy to explore, full of ancient secrets and new discoveries waiting to be found. Catherine looked up at the stars, bright and clear in the darkening sky. Somewhere out there, the Zentari were nursing their wounds and probably planning revenge. But they would find a different humanity waiting for them if they ever returned. A humanity armed with the wisdom of the predecessors and the determination to use it wisely. "You know," she said to her friends, "I think the predecessors chose well when they left their gifts for us to find." Peter raised his glass again. "To humanity's next great adventure." They all drank to that, their glasses catching the last light of the setting sun. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new discoveries, and new dangers. But together, they were ready to face whatever the galaxy had in store for them. In the end, the War Matrix had been more than just a weapon. It was a key that opened the door to humanity's future among the stars. And as Catherine looked at her team, her friends, she knew they would walk through that door together, ready to write the next chapter in their species' story.